I would like you all to welcome Sir Terry Pratchett and Tony Robinson.
About 30 or so years ago, my kid's mum and I split up, and I was completely shot to bits, and I was described as the grief monster took over and kind of flung me around the room every day. And one of the problems was that I couldn't sleep, and this rather magical thing happened, which was that my kids suddenly started to mother me. And my daughter she'd tuck herself in beside me every night and she'd say, I'm going to read you my new book. And she'd start, and it was The Colour of Magic, which I'd never heard of before. And she'd start, C, greater Turin, blah, 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 blah. And of course, because it was my daughter, I felt terribly relaxed and I'd fall asleep. And I'd be asleep way before the end of the first chapter. So the next night, she would do the same thing again. She'd read me the first chapter again. So I had this very partial understanding of The Colour of Magic. Partly very in-depth, but there was a lot of it I didn't know. But nevertheless, it immediately became, for obvious reasons, just about my favourite book in the whole world. I was down in Bristol at the time, and Terry was down in Bristol at the time. We became friends, and we have remained so ever since. So, just like you, basically, I'm just another fan. And I've been asked to ask Terry some questions tonight and also to get some questions off you guys to ask him. If we both sit down, can you see us up the back?
I'm not standing up. Oh, right, okay, righty-ho, okay, yeah, let's go then.
It'd be better really for you guys, wouldn't it? Can you?
I don't mind.
Two old men, we can cover that for an hour.
Yeah, well, if could the wheelchair go back and forward?
There's one question that we always ask each other in this culture, but in this case it actually does mean what it says. How are you?
I am fine, thank you very much. Tell me, look, I want to know this.
Yeah.
Do you take all the silver and gold out of the pit before you actually let the cameras in? You knew I was going to that.
I'm a very rich man, really. This is your gig, but I will tell you, because you've asked that question, there was once where somebody, about the only time ever on Time Team, when someone, a metal detectorist, produced a medieval gold coin. Big, it was about that big, and the director said, he's going to give it to you live. We'll only capture the look on his face once. So, receive it and don't mess it up. So I held up my hand, and he was so nervous, and it was raining so much, he dropped the coin in it, and this great gobbet of snot dropped out of his nose onto my palm. And I had to conduct an interview with him about how excited I was with all this.
Could be worth something on eBay.
Yes. Anyway, Terry.
But in fact...
Yes, but I've got to ask you these questions. We haven't got much time.
Okay, you haven't we? Yeah, 3 days.
Is that a burglary? Anyone got a pacemaker? Terry, if, when you finally snuff it, you're told that you have to take one book with you to your grave to epitomise your work as a writer, which of your books do you take?
Nation. Yeah, because apart from anything else, I mean, obviously, when the great clanking aliens from Alpha Centauri start digging this all up, they won't have all the Discworld books in one place, obviously. But Nation, I think, is more accessible, and it wrote itself. Many of my books write themselves, but Nation has got a place in my heart.
You said earlier you wrote it very fast.
Yeah, it wrote itself, and I wrote it in a passion. I mean, I was crying for half of it. It was just amazing. And the other thing is, it was as if every time I put out my hand for something, I found it. You know, the bits for the plot were there, and it was the result of, I call it serendipitous reading over the years. Just reading anything that looks interesting, and sooner or later, that fact that you found is going to be, you know, right in the middle of a plot that you're going to write. And that was it. I mean, it almost hurt to write it. It was like writing with fire.
Did you know from the beginning it wouldn't be a Discworld book?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's no. Yeah, I mean, even in Discworld, when we start off almost in the first chapter. A small boy has to bury practically everyone he's ever known. I don't think you could just get Rincewind in at that. But there was just slight Discworld touches here and there, like the power and things. But it just rolled away.
Presumably you get that thing which all writers get, which is that although you think you know who the characters are, they start to take over.
Vimes does. That's why I like writing Vimes, and I like writing Tiffany Aching, because I now have their characters so well laid out in my head that all I have to do is present them with the problem, as it were, and they will find a solution. Because I'm writing Snuff now, and I'm 2/3 of the way through, and more than that now. And it's full of vines, and I'm watching how he solves the problem that's in front of him, because he's you know, it's as if the robot is marching along and doing all his commands, and that's actually great. I get surprised about what he thinks.
Having said that, are you one of those writers who thinks the whole book through from beginning to end?
Oh, my word. No. The first part of Snuff is Vimes putting on a pair of socks that his wife knits him, and he has to wear boots that are 1.5 times too big because she can't make socks for Toffee. You know, and he loves her, but he daren't tell her that her socks are itchy and scratchy. And he wears them, and it's just a little sort of essay into the life of a husband. It's that actually that got my mind right for the next bit, and then the next bit followed that.
Which of the characters would you say are closest to you?
Probably Rincewind.
Rincewind.
I'd like to say Vimes, but I think everyone would laugh.
Oh, it's quite interesting, isn't it? Because Vimes, in a way, is like Tiffany. They're both incredibly moral characters, aren't they? And they're both really passionate about duty.
Yeah, I suppose so. But in Vimes's case, Vimes secretly believes. I mean, because when you're the kind of copper he is, you've seen so much really bad stuff. You don't know whether you're excused, as it were, in the handing out of the bad stuff. You know, he's out at night and in the darkness, and he wonders how much of the darkness gets into him. I mean, we've gone through that one before. I mean, he cherishes his badge because it keeps him a policeman. He's got that to think about. And now, of course, his little boy is taking the same role. You don't do it because you're little Sam's dad. And but with Tiffany, yes, but witches are like that. Witches do the job that's in front of them.
But in this one, she does have other witches, older women, who are keeping their eye on her.
Yes, but not necessarily to be all that helpful, as people will find out as they read the book. What the hell? They've speed read while we have been out, you know. You know, she is in some sense fighting for her life in this book. But there won't be another book for children with Tiffany Aching in it. that's for sure. But I expect she will turn up as an adult elsewhere in this world.
It's funny that you talk about them as books for children, because certainly when I read them for the audio tapes, it doesn't really cross my mind that they are children's books, that they are really very different in any way from the other Discworld books. Is there a differentiation in your mind?
Yes, I don't get so big an advance. That's how it goes in the children's book.
And does that explain why there might not be another Tiffany book?
No, it doesn't. It's just a kind of traditional thing, and it's about advances. It's really, so it's not such a big deal.
But when you think about the current book, which you've all sped read by now, it deals with some very heavy subjects, doesn't it? In general, the burning of witches, but really it's about fundamentalism.
There's also family violence, suicide, a few other things. But Tiffany Aching, I don't think the fact that it deals with things that will be very, unfortunately, familiar to us, and certainly familiar to any social worker. I don't think that means it isn't a book for children, at least for older children, because children these days are older than children were when we were children. They know more stuff earlier. Any kid old enough to read the newspaper is old enough to read I Shall Wear Midnight. So I'm not worried about that at all. If they can take werewolves and vampires, they can take an abusive parent. You know?
Where did the We Free Men come from?
I really don't know. They turned up in one of the witches' books. And the moment I heard the Crivens, I knew that was it. I talk to my computer these days, and I've had to teach the computer, Crivens. It's great that the computer now understands Fiegel. No, seriously.
You should have a very little computer by the side of your big one.
The thing is that they have no master. I mean, they do what they want to do. They are basically very good, except in the presence of booze and and things belonging to other people. but never mind about all the sabres and all the rest of it. At heart, they're decent.
What's the music? It was a ringtone.
There's a ringtone called I Wish You Hadn't Got This Really Soppy Ringtone. I Wish You Hadn't Got This Really Dreadful Ringtone.
There's some of your questions. For those of you who haven't read it yet, this is a reference to the latest book. What advice would your younger self give to your older self?
Get more sex while you can.